think you don't have what it takes to be a property developer?
Property developers were magnates, right? They drive the fast cars, they've got big pots of gold, and they can fund their deals. And that certainly wasn't me. I was a mum of three crazy little toddlers at the time, big fat mortgage, massive investment debt. When I was driving a Kia Carnival minivan with my little kids in the back, I was hardly the picture of a developer.
Today, with over 90 home developments under her belt, Amanda McEwin banks 6 and 7-figure profits.
Guess what? I just banked $687,000. How awesome is that, right?
And now she's ready to teach you how to do it too. What does it take to be a good developer?
Interestingly, it's less than what you think. I've got designers, I've got teachers, I've got doctors, I've got mortgage brokers, I've got FIFO workers, I've got real estate agents, I've got people from all walks of life inside of the community doing incredible things.
Don't miss this episode of 10 with Ty. Hi, I'm Tyron Hyde, the CEO of Washington Brown, the property depreciation experts. Now, I'm a qualified quantity surveyor and also a best-selling author who's helped hundreds of thousands of property investors over the years pay less tax through depreciation. I'm also an avid investor, which is why I created the podcast series 10 with Ty, where I ask the smartest people I know the same 10 questions to unlock the keys to their success and hopefully leave a playbook for my family and your family too about investing. Now, this podcast is general in nature and not specific to your financial circumstances. We always recommend you sit down with an accountant or financial planner before making any investment decisions. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to Season 2 of 10 with Ty. Now, before I get started, I just want to thank anyone who downloaded an episode of 10 with Ty. When I first launched this little podcast, my first episode had 300 downloads, which is pretty cool, but my last one cracked 10,000 downloads, which is pretty amazing. Now, to put that in perspective, if you get 30 downloads of a podcast in the first 7 days, you're in the top 50% of that category. So to get 10,000 is pretty amazing. Now, my goal for this year is to crack 50,000 downloads on one episode. And my next guest, Amanda McEwin, is going to help me get there. She's a rising star property developer. No, she's not. She's a star property developer. She's done 90 developers herself. But it didn't always start that way for Amanda. 10 years ago, she was tied to a full-time job, had 3 kids and a big mortgage, and thought, you know what? I'm not busy enough. I should get into property development. Now she teaches others how to do it. Amanda McEwin, welcome to 10 with Ty.
Thanks so much for having me.
Very good. Now tell us, how did you get into property development?
My whole property journey started when I had my third child. So I have 3 children really close together. So I've got they're now currently 14, 15 and 16. But back when this property journey began, I had 3 under 2.5. Wow. And I had to put them back into childcare because I had to work. We had a big fat mortgage. And I went to a job I didn't enjoy because I had a really big fat mortgage that actually needed 2 incomes to support it. So that got me searching for different wealth creation strategies. So I started down the property investment path because that's all I knew and it seemed to be the most common way to start. So I bought 3 investment properties in 3 years. But then what happened is it actually ended up tying me to my job because I had my big fat mortgage, but now I had $1.5 million investment debt as well. And as you all know, when you've got investment debt, you need to be able to service that up. And we were already at capacity. So our dreams of buying 10 properties, selling down half in 10 years and living off the passive income was crushed because we'd hit the bank's glass ceiling. So that then got me looking at different other strategies because I really wanted to get out of my job and have that time with my kids while they were young. So that was really the driver. But in order to be able to do that, I had to get rid of my mortgage. So then I started dabbling in renovation. They were fun. So I was dropping my kids off to childcare, racing to my reno site, dropping all materials off, meeting trades, rushing to my job, picking up my tired girls at the end of the day and sneaking in a visit to Bunnings during lunch hour. It was absolutely nuts. And I made money, right? I made 20, 40, 60K here because I would renovate and flip units. But what happened is that I actually became even more time poor and I wasn't creating the sort of income that was going to help me eliminate my mortgage and get my control over my time. So I kept on looking, kept on going to seminars and investing in myself. And I was trying to find renovation sites off market. So I'd invested in a program. I went to an educator to learn how to find off market deals and understand the option strategy. I've been a big person and always investing in myself to learn from other people who are doing what I want to do. And it was in that room that I got educated about the concept of property development. It never even crossed my mind because for me back then, property developers were magnates, right? They drive the fast cars, they've got big pots of gold and they can fund their deals. And that certainly wasn't me. I was a mum of 3 crazy little toddlers at the time, big fat mortgage, massive investment debt, certainly didn't have the pockets of gold. And I was driving a Kia Carnival minivan with my little kids in the back. I was hardly the picture of a developer. But what I liked about it was that the concept really seemed to connect with me in some way. Sort of, even though I hadn't done it, I actually felt like I'd finally found the wealth creation strategy I'd been looking for, because from what I had heard, it was a strategy that didn't seem to take a lot of time because you weren't having to go to Bunnings and go get materials and meet the trades because builders did all that.
Yep.
And I wasn't having to map it all out because my designers do all that. Anyway, the concept of property development made sense. Well, what really made sense was the lucrative returns that are attached to that. So I paid $40,000 to learn about how to do property development, but I was being taught the big end of town. And at the time, I was swayed by the educators mentioning about funding deals. And I thought, okay, I can use the money to do deals. And in reality, that didn't happen. But what I did is I took what I'd learnt and applied it to small-scale property development. So when I say small scale, I'm talking about 1 into 10. They're getting 1 block of land and putting anywhere between 1 to 10 different houses on that, whether it's land subdivision or townhouses or single homes or whatever. But that's what I classify as small scale property development. And so because I'd invested $40,000, right, I sure as hell was going to get a return on that investment. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to get a 10 times return on that investment in 24 months, because it took a lot of convincing to get my risk-averse husband on board as well. So I wanted to make sure that I got return on that. So anyway, I was out sending out letters. I'd send out 200 to 300 letters a week, trying to find deals off market. Plus I was going to realestate.com. Anyway, someone responded to one of my letters and that ended up becoming my first deal. And it was going to be a simple hammerhead or battle axe block. I was able to talk to the owner and we had a conversation around me buying the whole place. And he said, okay, if you buy the whole place, $550. If they kept the house because they weren't quite sure if they wanted to move out, I'd put try and put 2 on the back. And if council said no, I'd put 1 on the back. So I was going to give them $150 if I could put 1 on the back, $180 if I could put 2 on the back, and $550 if I could take the whole site. So they decided to say he needed some money just to be able to shut the doors on his cafe. It was learning, he needed $20K. It was losing money and causing a lot of stress. So I went through council, they said no to 2. So I spoke to him and we ended up agreeing to convert the option to a residential contract. And I was going to give him $150K. That was Monday. Anyway, on the Thursday, I got a call from his wife and I was in the big W aisle, 3 toddlers running around my ankles. Like, you imagine how chaotic that is. And I received this call and it was his wife. And she said, oh, look, I saw you spoke to my husband on Monday. And I said, yeah, we agree. I'm going to be transferred. We're going to execute the option and I'm going to transfer you $150K next week to, then I'll start the subdivision and all that sort of stuff. And she goes, well, actually, he passed away 2 days ago. He had a massive heart attack and died. And it still sends shivers down my spine. But how she had this clarity of thought to even have this conversation at this point in time, she goes, look, I can't stay here. I've got to go and somehow rebuild my life. Can you just please take the whole site? And she had a lot of comfort in that. She already knew what that price was going to be because we'd had those conversations earlier. So what was going to be a simple hammerhead block ended up being a fire site. So I ended up building up those 5 homes, so 2 at the front, 3 at the back, and within 15 months of me paying that $40,000 to educate myself, I banked my first project. It banked me $447,000. It took a massive chunk out of my mortgage. I had to leverage the equity in my home to be able to fund that deal, but I learned a lot on the way, and I ended up getting a second deal that I ran in parallel using family money, and that banked 6 weeks later, which was $187,000, and that wiped my mortgage out completely. So I went from having a massive principal place of residence debt 18 months prior to suddenly having it gone. And not only that, I was able to say goodbye to my job and have full control over my time and pull my kids out of childcare and start being the parent that I wanted to be when I decided to have children. And from then onwards, that was 2015, October 2015, life as I knew it changed completely from then. And so my main driver when I started doing this, all I wanted to do was get rid of my mortgage, because what happens when you get rid of your mortgage is like a cash flow accelerator effect. So if you think about the bank, how they would pull out your interest every single fortnight or month, what was happening is when I paid my mortgage off, that money stayed in our bank account. So it's like instant paydays. It's incredible. You don't actually even think about that, because you're thinking just about getting rid of the mortgage without even really understanding the cash flow impact of that. So it really did change our financial circumstances a huge amount. But for me, once the mortgage was gone and I had control of my time, it just gave me so much more space to be able to say yes to a lot more things, but also just have control over my time, volunteer in the canteens, kids' canteen if they wanted to. You get so much mileage from your kids if you're working behind the canteen when they're little. So I used to do that, just go to excursions and do things that I just wouldn't be able to do if I was still in the corporate world. So that was really a very quick snapshot of my journey and then from there it just started developing more and started using money partners and joint venture partners. And I even now when I think about a creator over 89 homes, it blows me away, because when I started, all I wanted to do was get rid of my mortgage. And now I'm in such a fortunate position. And I guess when, people start seeing success and people start asking questions and wondering how you did it. And that was what people were asking me to teach them about how to do what I've done. And that's what led to me creating the Rising Star Developer right when COVID hit in March of 2020, to be able to teach other people how to do what I've achieved. And that's a whole new journey now. And it's been amazing to be able to help other people have a similar experience to what I had when I paid my mortgage off as well.
Now, obviously, that's great. Obviously, having money helps being a developer. Now, when they come to your program, is there like a minimum threshold? Like, do people join your program with $0?
Yeah, they do. Some people
Really?
do, because you can also do deals without your own money. So all the deals actually majority of my deals that I've done have actually been no money down deals. And so what I mean by that is there's two parts to when you do development: equity and the debt component. So the equity component is what you bring to the table. And that can be equity in your home, it can be cash, it can be other people's money. So that's the equity component. And then the debt component is the bank providing the lion's share of the debt. So when you're doing a no money down deal, you can use other people's money to actually provide the equity component of your debt if you don't have it. I guess we didn't have it at the beginning because we used the equity in our mortgage, but then we started understanding the concept of leveraging money. So we would actually, I had my old boss when I left my job. He approached me and he cashed out of an IT company with a nice big chunk of cash. And so he came to me and he was one that actually got my head around this whole other people's money strategy, because he wanted to get involved in development. And he said, I've got all this money, but I don't know how to do development. And so then we started doing joint ventures together where he was providing all the equity, I was providing the debt, and we were sharing in the profits. So you don't necessarily need to have your own money to do deals. And now, we can fund our own deals, but it's actually quite fun to be able to do joint ventures with the right people and be able to share that journey of the project and the ups and downs of it, and also the rewards at the end as well. So I regularly get asked, how much money do you need to do property development? And my response is as little or as much as you have. Some people wanted to be able to do it in their own right. Some people may only have a couple of $100,000, or they may have all the equity but not debt. So whatever you don't have, you find somebody else that can actually provide that to be able to go and do a deal. So so I get people from all walks of life, all different financial circumstances.
And different skill sets? Are the builders that join you, or is there no skill required whatsoever?
No skill required whatsoever, because my goodness, if you understood, if my builder was on this podcast, he would go, Amanda asked the most silly questions, because I'll go to a building site and go, what is an eve and what's a soffit and all this sort of stuff. Like, I don't understand. I'm not a builder, right? I don't understand all the intricacies of building. And I don't know how to use CAD. I'm not a designer. But you engage other people to do those tasks, right? So it's like when someone comes to you and goes, okay, can you create a depreciation report? They've got no idea how to do depreciation report. They recruit your skills to be able to do that. And it's the same in property development. So what I do is I actually teach the fundamental process to follow about how to do projects, and then also the people to engage to be able to do the different comparts of it. And your job as a property developer is really just managing all those, I guess you're like the puppet master, managing all the people that are providing all the inputs into your project.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I have to know. I've got designers, I've got teachers, I've got doctors, I've got mortgage brokers, I've got FIFO workers, I've got real estate agents, I've got people from all walks of life inside of the community doing incredible things.
So seeing all those different skill sets, what do you think what does it take to be a good developer?
Interestingly, it's less than what you think. It's someone that's willing to learn and be coachable, because you're always going to be, every single project teaches you something new. As soon as you start thinking you know everything, you're going to get tripped up, right? So that's probably the ability to learn and be coachable. Second is ability to take action. And then thirdly is being consistent. That is the three key things that I see in all my successful developers. It's not about who has the most money. It's not about who's the smartest person. It's not about the person who's built more houses than anybody else. It's those three things. If you're willing to take the learning, if you're willing to take action and then keep showing up, because like anything in life, it can be a roller coaster ride and there's ups and downs, and nothing ever happens as quickly as you want it to in this game. Like, you wanted a deal yesterday, but you're still trying to find the deal, and you wanted your house built yesterday, but you still got to go through navigate your way through the development process. But if you're willing to keep showing up and keep being consistent, it will happen. It's just a matter of when.
Cool. I've got two more questions before we get into my famous 10 with Ty questions. Builder, obviously a very vital part of the process. How do you choose a good builder? What are your processes in regards to that?
Probably three key criteria. Firstly is their values. Like, I'm a very values-based person. So when I speak to people and when I when I have conversations with people, I can work out pretty quickly if we're going to be aligned in similar values. So that's probably one thing. For me personally, it's values-based. Secondly is their skill, like in terms of the quality of their product. Are they creating the type of product that I want to create? And are they creating that product to the type of quality that I expect? That's the second thing. And then thirdly is the biggie, especially in the last couple of years, is their financial viability. The last thing you want is a project to a builder to go under while you're mid-construction. So you want to make sure that they're financially viable. They're probably the three key things, but they're the three key things that I was looking out for even 10 years ago. And it's no different now. I guess we've had a few bumps in the road, especially during COVID when there were material shortages and there's been, it's been a really challenging time for builders. I also work with my builders. They're part of my A team. So we actually navigate challenges as we go around. And if you're looking for the perfect builder, you're never going to find them because it doesn't exist. You've got to try and find a builder that you can actually work with, because there will be curveballs on site that you need to work through. But when you've got a relationship with someone that is value-based and you can communicate with them, you can navigate through all those curveballs. So that for me is the foundations of how I choose my builders. Yeah. And I also want to make sure that I have a direct line into the seniority or the owner of the builder. So when you have to have those, when and if you have to have those tricky conversations, you can actually then have those with people, as opposed to being a small fish in a big pond. And that's what works for me in my business.
Couldn't agree more. There's nothing worse than having a builder go broke halfway through a project. It becomes a nightmare. I was before I was the world's greatest quantity surveyor in depreciation, Washington Brown was the project auditors on behalf of the banks for probably over 1,000 projects in Sydney back in 1990s and 2000s. And I had one builder. We were a bit worried about him. We had to confirm his viability of a project, and we independently got his accountant to write us a letter. The bank wanted to see a letter saying, he's liquid, everything's okay. He did that. The accountant sent us a letter. The week after, he went into liquidation. So you can never be 100% certain of the viability of a builder, unfortunately. Final question before we get to 10 with Ty. Now, you mentioned before you're letterbox dropping people to find off-market deals. Now, most developers tell me you make the money when you buy the site, right? You've got to buy the site at the right price.
Absolutely.
How do you teach your students to buy off-market?
So there's a number of different off-market strategies. So letter drops just one. You can also work either with a buyer's agent or yourself, or get real estate agents to do some door knocking. I've done that once in my life and I'd never do it again. So I'd get somebody else to do it for me if you choose to do that. But there's a huge off-market database with real estate agents. So I have a huge amount of respect for real estate agents. They're a really key part of your A team. They are the ones speaking to the people who are going to buy your product. They're the ones that really understand the dynamic of the market, because they've got their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the market right now. The media catches on a few months, it's lag indicator. They look at the stats, and then 3 months later they're talking about booms or busts, and agents on the ground, they've already seen the market moving way before that. So, but what happens is there's a huge amount of product that actually gets moved off market through real estate agents. So you really want to make sure you've got good relationships with real estate agents and are on their off-market databases.
Yep.
So that's another key strategy as well. So and engaging. So when I go and look for deals, I'm not just looking on realestate.com and Domain and just one strategy. I've got multiple strategies working for me at any one time. So and that's exactly what I teach my students as well. Don't rely on just one thing. Don't just go to realestate.com for half an hour a day to just look for your deals. Put your feelers out wide. So yeah, that's how I do it.
Yep. Thank you. All right, you ready to play 10 with Ty?
Yes, please.
It's the start of 10 with Ty. Amanda, what has been your best investment?
I would have to say my best investment has always been education, and it continues to be the best investment. I think it's like, I say it's the gift that keeps on giving. So if I think back to right back when I started and wanted to create wealth, I could have tried to work it out myself, but I found someone who was doing what I wanted to do and learnt from them. And that has certainly paid itself off. And I've made mistakes along the way. When I started being an investor, bought a couple of lemons, which I just sold this year. But continuing educating yourself and growing, I think, is the best investment you can possibly make in yourself. It teaches you things you don't know, but I also see it as an insurance policy as well. Learn from other people's mistakes so that you can avoid them. And I also find that it's a fast track to whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So every single year, even now, I invest $10 to $15 to $20, sometimes $50,000 in myself every single year. Whatever it is I'm trying to learn, I will invest in myself. So I'd have to say without a doubt is education.
What about, just before I go to number two, from a property development point of view, what was your best deal you've ever done?
Oh, so my best deal was one I banked last year. So it was interesting during COVID when the market was really tricky, severe supply shortages and labour shortages and projects extended and build costs going up. I made the most money in my project. So I banked my first seven-figure project late last year, and it was only 4 homes, which is pretty incredible.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's probably my best project. But I'd have to say the biggest impact investment was my very first development deal. Like if I had stayed, if I'd kept in the fear zone and not actually taken the plunge to actually go and learn how to do property development, but also take action and do my first project, I'd still be with a big fat mortgage in my original house, trying to look for wealth creation. So that would be my best investment, the fact that I learned. I went out and actually did my first development deal and got rid of my mortgage. So that's my best, probably my investment, even though it's not the highest return. But yeah, my highest return was the one that banked during COVID.
Cool. Number 2, what about your worst investment?
Margin loan in my late 20s. So I would say, just trying to create wealth, because I was thinking, okay, down the track, I want to be able to have kids, and I was trying to save money and grow money. And back then, right, I think, I can't remember the decade, but margin loans were all the thing. You go and get your loan and you buy all these shares and you're going to make all this money. And then, of course, getting that margin loan call and going, oh, dear. Fortunately, we had some money to be able to clear it, but it was a very big lesson on leveraging to buy shares. So fortunately, it wasn't one that really broke us, but it was a very good lesson around the risks of leverage when it came to shares. And probably my second worst investment was the second 2 investment properties that I purchased when I was in the buy and hold side of things, when I first started my wealth creation journey. We purchased 2 investment properties in Gladstone. One we built, one we bought at the top of the market in 2011. So we bought for cash flow. And at the time, I think we purchased the first one at $498,000. At the time, it was bringing in $650 rent. So the numbers were great, cash flow positive. But and then we went and bought a block of land and built a house, and that was renting for about $680. Then about 2013 or 2014, the market sort of started. It was an industrial town, but the market really pulled back and corrected. So a lot of workers left that area, and yeah, those houses have been reverse mortgaged for the last probably 8 years. And fortunately, we were in a position where we didn't have to sell those, but the rents dove down to about $290 a week, and the value, like the $498,000 one, went down to $260,000. Unfortunately, we were just paying our interest and hoping that the bank wouldn't actually do a revaluation. And same with the other property. But we sold both of those properties this year, break even, so never made any money in 12 years on those properties. So they weren't great investments. And it's funny, I had this conversation with my husband, and he would always go, whenever it's a tax time or we get these massive big rates invoice at around June, July. Oh, those lemons, I'm so sick of those properties. I want to see the back of them. And I keep saying to him, I know they're not great investments, but look what's happened as a result. Like, that was our first step, and it wasn't a smart decision. But we made the best decision, and we did at the point of the time with the information that we had. But that set us on this trajectory to then look for other solutions in renovation, then look for other solutions into property development. And that would have never happened if we hadn't started that. So I always try to find, I'm a glass half full kind of girl. So I think even though they weren't great investments, we learned a lot from it. And
It was one never to buy mining towns?
Not necessarily. I don't necessarily. Yeah, I mean, we nearly bought a property in Moranbah, which I think back to at the same time, right? We bought this, we had an offer on this property, and this is what you call seriously dodging a bullet. I know a lot of people weren't as lucky, but we bought this first property in Gladstone, and then we had a property that we had put an offer on at Moranbah. So the property was going to be $780,000, and the rents at the time was something like $1,200.
Yeah.
Insane rate. And for some reason, we thought, you know what? We're going to put we're going to develop 3 on this property, and we're going to get 3 tons of rent, and it's going to be amazing. We'd never developed before. At that stage, I hadn't even educated myself about it and how we thought we were going to develop 3 properties in a mining town miles away without any skill and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, what happened, we were doing our due diligence, and as we were speaking to agents, I started getting this sick feeling in my gut. Something wasn't right. And I spoke to one lady, and she said, things are changing a bit. There's the amount of rental vacancies are starting to increase. I thought, hang on a second. And she said, properties are taking a bit longer to rent now. And I thought, oh, hang on a second. Something's happening right now. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But we pulled out at the 11th hour, and then within 6 months, that market absolutely tanked. And unfortunately, there's a number of investors that got lost ignorance on that. So we seriously dodged a bullet there as well. But lesson from that was sometimes if your gut's telling you something, sometimes you got to really listen to it.
Well, you did dodge a bullet, because we see the back ends of those investment properties. The 791 sold for back then, and now we're doing reports where the purchase price is like $200,000, but the construction cost is still $400,000, right? So they're getting more deductions, but they paid $200,000 for it. But the poor person that paid $790, which could have been you, not a good position to be in.
No, absolutely.
Do you own an investment property? Washington Brown has helped over 250,000 property investors pay less tax with the depreciation schedule. Visit washingtonbrown.com.au to pay less tax today. Number 3, what's been the most valuable investment advice you've ever received, Amanda?
I think invest with purpose. Invest with a purpose. And I think that's my perspective around investment, but also life and business as well. So I think when I talk about purpose, it's whether that is you're doing a project for a financial freedom, or you're doing a project to meet a social need. Like a lot of what I build is actually affordable housing, and that for me makes me feel really good about what I'm creating, because I'm helping first home buyers get into the market. I'm also providing much needed property and affordable property in a market where it's really hard for a lot of people to get into the market. So yes, I'm making money, but I also feel like I'm creating, helping the community with product that people want to live in. So I'm creating homes for people to be able to create memories and a lifestyle. And I think that's investing in creating, doing a business with purpose as well. But I think sometimes that whole purpose can get lost in business when we're so focused on our return on investment and making money. I don't know, I sort of feel that sometimes it can be a bit shallow, whereas I find that when we're creating homes, actually thinking about the bigger picture outside of your own needs as well, it just gives you a sense of accomplishment and joy from what you do when you have a purpose behind how you invest.
Fantastic. So the affordable housing is what, you just rent them to essential services, or how are you dictating that?
So I'm selling the product. So at the moment I'm building 10 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom sort of walk-up flats. It's the biggest project I've ever done, and we haven't even we're about to turn soil, and we've sold 5 already. And it's purely a price point driven, right? Because the market's been going so nuts across the country over the last 3 years with post-COVID. It's really hard for a lot of first-home buyers, and not even just first-home buyers, a lot of young families trying to get a roof over their heads. So it's creating product that is in that sweet spot, between, it used to be when I first started, affordable housing was between $400,000 and $500,000, and now it's between $550,000 and $750,000. This is the Adelaide market. That will vary depending on what other market there are. And for me, even the property that is being able to hand over a home to a young first home buyer, like the excitement when you hand the keys to them and that they sense the pride they get moving into their home. I think that sometimes gets lost in this whole definition of property development. We're not just creating houses; we're actually creating homes for people. So I guess that's my purpose.
Fantastic. I think there should be more government incentives, like bringing in a 4% building allowance. This is just a personal thing, of course, a 4% building allowance to people building affordable homes, like what they've done with the build-to-rent scheme, but they've limited that to having to do 50 developments, 50 units within the one development. Not everyone can do 50 units, but if it was just even a 10-unit development, encourage more private investor activity in that regard.
Yeah, well, 3 of my 10 site are actually, there's an affordable housing scheme here in South Australia. I'm not sure how if it branches out further, but here we do actually have affordable housing scheme that we can tap into where if you're creating affordable percentage of your project is affordable housing, you get benefits in terms of a higher density, less car parking requirements, and also land tax. So, and then that firstly gets marketed to people who meet the affordable housing criteria based on income. So they get the first chance to purchase that property before it then goes to the open market. But we have to still sell at that affordable price point. So we've got that here, which is what I'm doing as well.
All right, question number 4. What's your ideal portfolio mix?
So for me, it's not keeping all of my eggs in one basket. So it's about creating multiple income streams. So I think if you have one income stream, whether that is just your job or whether it's, whether you're just solely an investor, you always want to make sure that you don't keep your eggs in one basket, because if you have shares, for example, and that gets pulled back, if they've got shares and property and your income, there's always at some stage where something's going better than others, whether that's your portfolio, you have some shares that are going better than others. If you've got a diverse share portfolio, it evens out, and it's the same with investment property. So I just make sure that I've got multiple income streams. So for me, I've got business, I've got rent, I've got shares. My portfolio mix is heavily real estate, mainly because I build and develop and affordable housing because of what I know. But we also do have an extensive portfolio, a share portfolio as well. But for us personally, we're entering a new phase of our wealth creation. And the last 10 years has been really about paying off our original home, upgrading to our forever home, getting that completely debt-free and building buffers and creating cash flow with minimal debt. So that's been our goal for the last 10 years, and we've achieved that. So we're entering into a new phase of wealth creation, heading into some form of retirement. And I'll always do something because I don't think I'll ever completely retire. So that product mix we're actually in the process of working all that plan out right now, doing our roadmap, our 20-year roadmap, and how we're going to modify our current investment strategy to suit the next phase of our lives.
Cool. Question number 5. Now, you said you've got how old was your oldest child? 16?
15, yeah, 15, 16. 14, 15, 16-year-old.
Wow, you were busy. When the oldest turns 20 and she comes to you and says, "Mum, I've just got $20,000 cash I've saved up. How would I invest it?" What are you going to tell her?
Well, interestingly, Tyron, yesterday I was speaking at an event and I had a 21-year-old come up to me and ask me this exact question. But the difference was she had $250,000 and she didn't know what to do with it, right? So I was like, firstly, insane and amazing that you've even got that sort of money. So a huge pat on the back. And she says, I just don't know what to do with this $250,000. And I thought back to the conversation that we had when I interviewed you and asked this question. And I said, look, I know this is $20,000 worth of $250,000, but I think the answer is pretty much the same. I just said to her, look, allocate a portion to go and experience life. So, allocate a portion, go and travel, whatever connects with you, whatever it is that you love to do, go and experience that and get some life experience under your belt that's going to inspire you, invigorate you, give you headspace to just have some life experience, right? So I said, yeah, allocate and think about that. And then for the rest of the funds, think about what is it that you want to be doing? Do you want to be buying a house? Do you want to create some income flow through that? What do you enjoy doing? Do you like tracking shares, or do you like building homes? Have a think about what connects with you. And she said, oh yeah, I like doing both. I said, well, you could either invest in yourself and do a portion in shares, and you could also either buy property. You could either develop your own property, buy a single home, and go for a principal place of residence strategy where you buy a block of land, build a house on it, even for 12 months, flip it, get the tax benefits of that, and then could do another one because she's so young and do that as a strategy if she wanted to. Or she could be a money partner and get a return on that investment as well. So I said to her, have a think. There were a lot of speakers at yesterday's event. So have a think about all the things you've heard. What connects with you personally? What do you think would inspire you? Because you also want to enjoy what you're doing as well. But then educate yourself about whatever strategy you're going to be doing, and make sure you're getting a return on that money as well. So that's what I said to her. And so to break that down as a 20-year-old, because I'm sure my girls will be there before I know it, I'd be the same thing. I say, take 5 or 10K, go and travel for 12 months or 6 months or however long you want, and just get some life experience under your belt. Because I really do think I did the same thing when I was younger. And I remember staying in backpackers and, sleeping on train floors because, our train was leaving earlier, and absolutely living on the bones of our ass, right? But there were so many incredible experiences that came out of that. Life experiences around managing money and managing adversity and things like life skills, communicating with people from all different walks of life and different cultures, and their life skills that can translate in so many different ways when you're older as well. So I'll do the same thing. Go and travel and live for a while, and then invest whatever the balance is, either in some sort of education that's going to help you create an income stream to help set yourself up for life.
Fantastic. So just to let the audience know, so when Amanda asked me that question, I said a similar thing. I said I want my daughter to go away for a year with $20,000 and not hit me up and travel around the world and not hit me up for any money for a year. So there you go. You'll learn some major life skills.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And if you do, and you leave a comment, send me an email to tyron@washingtonbrown.com.au and I'll send you a couple of my books for free.
All right, question number 6. You've just turned 50 and you've inherited $500,000. You've got no money. How would you advise yourself to invest that $500,000, Amanda?
Well, this connects with me because I'm just about to hit that milestone this year. So, but
well, I don't think you've got I think you've got a bit of money though.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, situation. But if you've inherited $500,000 and you absolutely have nothing to your name at all, I would think about either you want to be able to ultimately get a roof over your head. So last thing you want to be doing is hitting pension age, whether you're 60 or 70, and getting the pension and having to pay rent out of that money. So at that stage, I'll be working out how to try and get a roof over your head, but do it in a way that's going to grow. So if I was in that situation, I'd be using that money to even develop a principal place of residence, get a block of land, build a house on it, and get some capital growth in that to then perhaps go again or leverage the equity to then go again in another project or get a return on that money. So that's what I would do to be able to be able to grow that money, create some equity, but also have in the back of your mind that you want to get that house, you want to get a roof over your head and then get rid of that mortgage as quickly as possible so that you then, if you happen to be on a pension, which in reality, if you do that and you keep doing projects, you're not going to have to go on the pension anyway because you're going to be able to create wealth using active strategies. But I think that would be my get a roof over your head and then leverage equity to be able to get rid of that mortgage and then create the next phase would be then creating an income stream, passive income stream.
Have any of your students joined with that kind of similar scenario where they've inherited money and wanted to go down this path?
Yeah, I've definitely had students do that. And yes, whether they become money partners, some of them become money partners, start off with just to find their feet around doing a project, but they're clear on what their broader strategy is in terms of getting that roof over their heads.
Very cool, very cool. All right, question number 7. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 20-year-old self about investing? I think this is one of my favourite questions, actually.
I'd reinforce the concept of compounding. So understanding the concept of compounding and even doing something small in your 20s will pay dividends as you go on. So I think the understanding the power of how to make money grow, and also not being so hard on myself to think that I had to have everything figured out at that age. I think that's the challenge. And I've even speak to my 16-year-old and she goes, Mom, how I'm going to be able to afford to buy a house when I'm older? And I think today's youth tend to have a lot more worries about that, like being able to afford their own home and earn enough money than I certainly did in my 20s. When I was 20, I was actually living in the UK, traveling and working and doing that sort of thing. So I think if my 20-year-old self, I'd say have a bit more clarity around what you want to achieve in life and surround yourself with people who know what they're doing and are successful, because I think when you're surrounded by like-minded people, that sort of levels you up as well. But at the same time, live as well. Live, learn, and plan for your life, I think. So I know I had some friends of mine when they were younger that I did have some friends that when they were 20, they bought their first property and, they didn't really do any travel and they spent their whole youth just buying property and investing and not actually doing a lot of fun living as well. And that's great in terms of creating wealth, but life is so much more about just creating wealth. You want to be able to create wealth and that financial independence, but you want to do it in balance with life experience and living life as well. So,
all right, question number 8. What legacy do you want to leave your family or community, Amanda?
For my family, I want my girls to be independent and strong women that can stand on their own 2 feet and reflect upon my unsolicited words of wisdom through their teens to help them when they're older, so that they can become their best versions of themselves. I think I want them to be the best versions of themselves. I want them to be able to go through life and be able to deal with the roller coaster ride of life with a clear, be able to deal with things with kindness, and to be able to live a life with purpose, and just to be decent human beings. And I've said to them, and I said this from a young age, I said, and who you choose to be your life partner be one of the most important decisions you make in your life. So choose wisely. So, these little lessons I've weaved in and as many eye rolls as I've got. I spoke to a friend of mine, one of my daughter's friends' mums recently. She's got 23-year-old triplets actually. And she said, you know what? My girl's now 23 and they're now starting to reflect upon some of the things that I said when I was younger when they were getting the eye roll, that now they understand why you didn't said those things. So I'm hoping when that girl gets that age that they'll think, because my youngest goes, Mum, another lecture, So,
we're going through that, don't worry.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you just got to keep planting those seeds and hoping that they grow. And for me personally, so yeah, being able to bring up my girls and create some decent humans is important. But also for me, it's also knowing that I've made a positive difference in the lives of others. And I really feel that I'm able to do, that's why I get so much joy from what I do at the Rising Star Developer, because I've created this beautiful community. And even I've actually had about 5 or 6 of my students set up my event yesterday, which I didn't really know they were coming in Brisbane, and especially a couple of the new people. And they just said, look, the positive community that you've created is what they were completely blown away from. So, and I think we interview everyone that comes into our community because we want to make sure we've got the right people in there, because there's so much negativity in this world. And I think you really do need to surround yourself with people that, everyone has ups and downs in life, and, life can deal a shit sandwich every now and again. And if you're surrounded with people that, that have your back and that are kind and have this view of there's enough, there's enough there, like we're there to help one another and we're, help to support one another through ups and downs, and also there to celebrate success. There's no tall poppy syndrome. Like at the moment, I'm just we do a 6- and 7-figure club at inside the Inner Circle where we celebrate the success of our students who have banked 6- or 7-figure profit for that year. Because in this game, when you go through a project, right, like I had a payday a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't go to my family or my friends and go, guess what? I just banked $687,000. How awesome is that, right? You can't do that.
No.
In a community where people actually get the journey that you've gone through, they're like, you know what? How awesome is that? I know what you've done to do that, and you are awesome. And to be able to, when you're working on a business and typically you're at home by yourself and it's property development can be a lonely journey because you're doing it at home and you're doing all these amazing things, but you haven't got people to share that with. To have a community go, I am awesome because I had just banked $380,000 and that's helped me take a big chunk out of my mortgage. And you have people around and you go, you know what, that's freaking awesome, and celebrate you. And that inspires other people as well and helps them progress in their journey. I think that's pretty awesome.
Now, just one thing with the program, back to its reality, with the program, so projects go for 3 years. How does it work? It's a long-term program?
I didn't want someone to become part of the program and 12 months and you're out, right? Because typically projects take longer than that. So with my program, the way it works is you invest yourself, you're in that program for as long as the program exists. So it actually, even though it's like an upfront investment, it actually, the years that you're involved, it's really cheap because you can do one project and you more than pay it off. But it's not just that. You're part of a community that's ongoing. So whether it's your first project or your second or your third, you can still tap into the support and ask those questions and join the group coaching calls to get that question answered. And so I've done that for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I acknowledge that projects take longer than 12 months and I want to be able to help support people through that whole journey because I want to see people actually get results and achieve success. It's not just about me educating them and then you're out, go on your way. I actually want to see the success that they have. Because then what that does is even when so the people who've just got the six and seven figure club awards, that's taken them a journey, sometimes 12 months, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years, depending on where they're at. So by then I get to then hear their success, but then that also inspires other people who, whether they're at the start of their journey or midway or, 2 or 3 projects deep, that inspires them too. So that's the reason why I wanted to just open it up. And people come in and out of the program. So even though I've got many students, some people are in for a while and some people go and do their own thing. People will connect when they need to and reach the support. But I wanted to know from my perspective that I was offering a program that is world-class, that is authentic, that is a really safe space, an abundant space for people to connect and create wealth together. So, and I'm really proud that I've created that space.
Very cool, very cool. All right, question number 9. What does success look like to you, Amanda? You look pretty successful from the outside world with all these developments and so forth, but what does success look like to you?
So for me, is a quote that really captures my holistic view of success. And it's interesting that it's a quote that was read to me that I learned about before I left my last job. The last company that I worked for were really great at investing in their staff about mindset and a bit of philosophy and things like that. So the quote that I'm going to read is Ralph Waldo Emerson. I'm sure you might know this. I'm not sure if you know this one, but it says, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether that be by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a deemed social condition. To know that even one life is breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded.
That's great. Who was that by?
It's Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Love it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, isn't it?
Thank you very much. All right, question number 10. Now, the reason I started this podcast was because my father lost all his money. I saw him lose all his money, which had a bit of a devastating effect on him, to be honest. So Warren Buffett is quoted as saying, rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Amanda, how do we not lose money as investors?
So as investors, there's a number of philosophies that I teach my members inside my program. So the first one is always risk first, profit second, right? So when you're in the development world, when you start doing feasibilities, the numbers are really lucrative, right? And that greed gland can certainly come to the fore when you start thinking, I'm going to make all this money. How awesome is this? But I always say, we look at the project first and make sure that we manage risk first. And if you're comfortable that all those risks are being managed, and you can't manage every single risk, but the majority of the risks, then if the profit stacks up, then you proceed. So that's one strategy. Second strategy is always have buffers. So buffers in your projects, buffers in your financial life, so that if any surprises happen, then you know that you're going to be able to support that surprise or that challenge. So like I think back for our investment properties, and those 2 investment properties were not, were reverse mortgage and costing us money. We had buffers to be able to ride that so we could get out without it costing us. And same with projects. I always want to make sure that I've got, if anything goes south, that I know that my investors and my money partners are all protected, and we're going to be okay. So always have buffers. Thirdly, win-win always. So it's always making sure that whatever you do is a win for you, but it's also a win for your joint venture partner, your business, your family, friends, whatever. And then the last one is starting with the end in mind. So when we go into projects, it's always thinking about how we're going to get out of a project when we're getting into it. And so that's looking at risk strategies there. So it's really, a lot of this is around risk management. And as I mentioned before, I'm married to a very risk-averse husband, and as frustrating as that can be at times, it's actually been a blessing in disguise. That push-pull, he drags me back down. I'm like, I just want to run and run and run. And he's like, well, hang on a second, Amanda, that's a bit risky. So we managed to meet halfway at most times. But yeah, I think it is really about managing risk. And regardless of how good something is, you always want to think, okay, well, what could go wrong here? And that's not to scare yourself or to freak you out, especially for those who are really risk averse. Think, oh my God, I'm scared, it's too risky. It's about taking calculated risks, because everything in life has risks. So by managing risk the best way we can, risk first, profit second, having buffers, being win-win always, and starting with the end in mind is how I believe that you can never lose money.
Love it. All right, we're coming to the end of the program, Amanda. Now, I didn't tell you there's always a surprise question on 10 with Ty. I don't think you asked me one, but I'm going to ask you one. It's about a topic that I love, construction costs, okay? So my questions that'll be related to that. A developer once said to me, he said, he had a big booming voice. He said, Ty, if I knew the end construction cost, before I bought the site, I would never have bought a site. Now, if developers struggle to find the construction cost, and I'm a quantity surveyor, and I sometimes struggle to know what things cost to build, how can a newbie doing a feasibility know what the construction costs of a project are going to be?
Yeah, so that's a really important question, right? So this is where we need to have an A team around us. So our builders are the ones that are estimating projects all the time. So firstly, you want to make sure that you're using a builder that's creating similar product to what you're trying to create. Because if they're doing multiple projects, they've generally got similar projects in the pipeline that they've costed up or they're in the process of costing up. So when I am taking on a new project, I'm speaking to my builders and going, okay, because at the time when you're taking on a project, you don't have the full working drawings, right? You have a concept in your mind. So I'll go to my builder and go, okay, we've got this 3 site here. It's going to be likely 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, double garage for around 160 square meters on 300 square meters of land of a medium spec, right? So you sort of outline the parameters about what you're planning to create. And based on their experience, because they're the ones that are doing estimating for all these other projects and see what the market is, they give you an estimate, right? And it's an estimate because, of course, they don't have the full working drawings with the footing depths and all that sort of stuff. So you put buffers on those estimates to make sure that if it goes up or down, that you're still going to be okay. Because you as a developer, you don't understand how to, and I wouldn't have the first clue how to estimate a project, right? That's not my skill set. But that's what my builders do day in, day out. So it's working with builders that firstly, you know that they've done this before, that they actually understand how to create the product that you want to create. And if they've got projects in progress, well, typically most builders that I work with, they've got, 40 to 100 keys under construction. So they've got their finger on the pulse of construction cost. Certainly the last 2 years during COVID, that test was testing builders, that's for sure, when they'd provide a quote and then they'd put the order in and then the order would then get pushed up by 17%. And that put a lot of risk on builders. But it's about making sure you've got relationships with builders where you can get the costing, and you can only base it on the current market, right? But typically when you're doing a project, you've got your budget pricing and then that gets tightened up when you've got your build costs and when you've got your final working drawings. But it's having contingency and buffers in place so that you can weather ups or downs on that price as well.
And is there recommended builders within your program? Does it go to that level, the program?
So what we do is we have what's called a black book. So members can actually put in their favorite builders, designers, architects, brokers, all that sort of thing in there. And then we've got state-based chats as well where people can ask locally if they've got builders that they recommend. So absolutely within the community, if people are sharing their A-teams and that's them. Because we've got a national program, it's all around Australia. So we've got, builders to students all around Australia and regionally and in the cities as well. So we've got the black book there, and then we've got the state-based chats as well where people share who they've got. And by having this community, which is abundant, it's not about, this is my builder, I'm not sharing my builder. We've created a space where we give, and the more we give, the more we get back.
Thank you so much for your time, Amanda. Now, if you want to join Amanda's community, where would people reach out and find you?
So you can go to my website, risingstardeveloper.com, or otherwise I'll give you a link as well. Or should we put the link to the show notes?
Yep.
Where we can give you access to a free program to actually learn more about the concept of property development. I've got a program called the Cashflow Accelerator. It's a short course, 6 modules. It goes for a couple of hours. And that will just introduce you to the concept of what is small-scale property development, how do you do it, and how can you create cash flow streams from that. So more than happy to give your listeners a link to that if they want to go and check that out.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again so much. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. Thank you, Amanda.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Okay, bye.
10 with Ty is brought to you by Washington Brown, the property depreciation experts.